Tonight, the top drivers in 60-plus racing adventures return to competition at iRacing's virtual Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta to start off its 23rd season for the Indy Pro 2000 PM 18s here on RaceSpotTV. Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Prince. Alongside the booth tonight is Joshua Lee as we get ready to go racing here in Georgia. Lots of excitement for the drivers entering tonight to start off a brand new campaign, Josh. Plenty to talk about as these drivers get ready for the first two-race round of 12 this summer.
And it's a pretty grueling campaign. 12 rounds on the docket for this season. We'll have 3 of those broadcasts for you right here on RaceSpotTV. But off the heels of the 22nd season of action in 60-plus racing adventures inside of these slower open-wheeled machines, it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers navigate the 23rd season, and a relatively large field here as well, Justin. 30 cars ready to take the green flag at the legendary Road Atlanta.
A very historic racetrack with plenty of memories made at this facility, especially when it comes to the type of racing that can be put out here at this facility. We talked a little bit about tonight being the first of the 3 races on the schedule, being on Race Spot this season. After today, they have Barcelona, New Hampshire, Long Beach, Donington Park. Then we return for July the 19th at WeatherTech Raceway with Laguna Seca. Then it is Worldwide Technology Raceway, Mosport, also known as Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, Phillip Island, Road America, Phoenix, and the Nordschleifer to round out the season, Josh. Those are some thrilling races, to say the very least, for the Race Spot side of the slate, as well as the 3 oval races mixed in there.
I want to talk about a curveball. For on this schedule, ovals might be a small curveball, but the Nordschleife is just the most massive track on the iRacing service, and these drivers are going to have to navigate that in the championship finale of all races as well. I'm excited to see how that's going to go down when we hit September in a few months.
So now Frederick started off the season last time out in season 22 at the Nordschleifer with the sweep. Now, when it comes to this series, these drivers looking to try and defend some hardware in particular, because coming in from last season, it was Russ Addy who picked up the championship over John Morgan. Morgan picked up the Gentleman Driver Racer Award, should say, for the 4th time in his career. For Russ Addy, his first championship since season 15, that being a couple years ago. And don't forget, into the mix of that, Mike Gandy picked up the Oval Championship, but also the Team Championship. R&R Racing, Addy and Shoemake have been red hot in this series for the past 2 seasons.
And I'm interested to see how these drivers are going to really get a good start in season 23. Russ Addy currently is top of the board when it comes to qualifying right now, but as far as the rest of the drivers there, John Morgan sitting in P4, and you have to go down the order a while to find Shoemake, who is just at the edge of the top 10. So not the best showing of the top 10 from last season's championship and qualifying right now, but still a lot of time left to go.
Still lots of time, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, in fact. 5 drivers yet to set times. Robert Love, Steve Greenwood, Richard Columba, along with Jane Moore and Franz Brink yet to set times this session. Russ Addy, the quickest on the board currently at the 1:16.8. Keep in mind, when it comes to the series, there are 2 races in each round. Sprint races, 24 laps the distance for today's races, where the best result from either race for the event counts towards the driver's championship. And a driver's 10-week results will be counted towards the Road Drivers Championship, which includes 2 drop weeks. There is also this season a Super 70s Championship that will honor the drivers more than 70 years of age in this series. So keep an eye on that, as well as the teams as they look to battle it out starting today, Josh.
Those drop weeks, I think, are going to be really crucial to this championship, JP, because it gives these drivers a little bit of an opportunity to make some mistakes, which we know is very easy, especially in these Indy Pro 2000s. Yes, they're a little bit slower than maybe the graduate of IndyCar or the Mercedes AMG W12 that is now on the service, but they're still very tricky to get right. Very, very narrow, thin tires, which creates not a ton of grip and still a good bit of power to put to the ground. So these drivers need to make sure that they have the Indy Pro 2000 under them, that they are comfortable with it, and those drop weeks are going to give them just the smallest opportunity to kind of treat this series as a bit more of a gateway into the larger cars, so they can take a little bit more risks and try and go for that championship at the end of the season.
Keep in mind, fixed setups for this series too, so a good opportunity indeed, as you mentioned, we were talking about before today, to learn the open wheel side of the arts in this series throughout the campaign. And remember, 60 Plus Racing Adventures also trying to do the same in stock car racing with the next gen machines currently, but also in GT3s on other days. In this organization led by Donald Strout. The driver's 30 seconds away. Who do you feel will be some of the top contenders to start off this season, season 23?
Well, it's interesting, of course, you mentioned it, JP, 2 races happening tonight instead of the normal 1 that was customary for a lot of leagues and official series on iRacing. Russ Addy's a good pick. He's currently at the top, but I'm going to look towards that middle pack. I think it's going to be Gary Bystrom, John Morgan, Donald Poole, who are going to try and pounce on the top 2 heading into the first sector here at Road Atlanta and try and get that early lead. So I'm expecting somebody from around middle of the top 10 to end up capturing that first checkered flag of the season after 24 laps tonight.
The drivers getting themselves all set to go for tonight's action. Qualifying has come to the close. 30 drivers making it out to Georgia here today. It's time to take a look at your starting grid as Russ Addy starts on the pole for the first time this season alongside Danielle Fritterer. Then it is Gary Bystrom alongside John Morgan. Donald Poole puts up a top 5 run with a 117 flat to start alongside Bob Cohen to round out the top 6. Paul Stump starts in 7th today with Greg Garris in 8th. Mike McCart and Randy Shoemake, the veteran in the open wheel machine, starts in the top 10. Ulf Olsen and Barry Hills, the top 12 here today. Bruce Poole and Mike Grandy start in the top 14 with Rory Collins and Marcellus Bruning inside the top 16. Douglas Beasley and Peter Holstrom, the top 18. 19th goes to Eugene Clark with Pierre Dion in 20th. Michael Bailey in 21st with Jerry Carr in 22nd. JC Hay and David Bradley amongst the final drivers in qualifying for times. The last time set for 25th was by Earl Setzer. The rest of the drivers did not set times to start the season. Steve Greenwood, Richard Colombe, Franz Brink, Robert Love helped build today's setup for these drivers, and Gene Moore. 30 drivers rolling for the rolling pace lap to get ourselves set to go to start up a brand new season. Josh, lots of action today. Full and build invert, keep in mind for race 2 expected. In turn, keys to victory here today.
I think you just need to survive. This is a very, very large field. 30 drivers are taking the green flag. We can expect these drivers to race relatively clean. It's one of the things known about this league across the iRacing service. So I think it's just avoiding any possible incidents. Give the other drivers some space. 24 laps is not a ton of time, but it still is a relatively good amount of time for these cars on this track. So you cannot make those moves too quickly. You gotta try and avoid all the possible incidents. And I think just conserve any tires, conserve any fuel that you can. Not expecting that much pit strategy on the track, but still gotta make sure that you can make it to the checkered flag and have a competitive car in the late stages.
Drivers did have the indication from this season's schedule of which races to expect a pit stop. Only 4 of the 12 round dates have expected pit stops. Long Beach, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, Phillip Island, and Road America. 3 of which are in the second half of the season. So no pit stop expected for these drivers in both the races today. Still, as the drivers get sorted out together here, it'll be interesting how some of the drivers build momentum. Remember, drivers like Russ Addy in particular won 6 straight races at certain points last season.
And Russ Addy coming off of that momentum of that championship. I think he is going to be really, really strong in the outset, but he needs to not let those nerves get to him. Maybe it's a bit of a momentum push. Maybe it's creating a bit of anxiety for Russ Addy. He needs to be careful on this start and in this opening round. Is he going to continue where he left off and capture the checkered flag, or is he going to crumble to the pressure and see Donald Fitterer or Gary Bystrom be able to get by him quick?
And remember, when it comes to Fitterer's case, he started off season 22, 3 straight victories on the trot. 2 at the Nordschleifer, 1 at Road America. But the iRacing safety car makes its way to pit road. It's time to go racing for 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Season 23 is underway from Road Atlanta. And a clean start for Russ Addy as he pulls away from the pack. Side by side, battling about 8th on back off the jump.
Already the front of this field starting to get single filed out as they go through the S's for the very first time here at Virtual Road Atlanta. Still seeing a bit of side-by-side action further back, but it looks like the majority of the field clean and green at the front of the field as everybody now gets single file. Not a side-by-side battle in sight all the way through this 30-car field as everybody gets stuck in on lap 1.
One crash has happened at the back of the pack with Earl Setzer, Jerry Kerr, and Richard Colum. 2 of those drivers have already put their cars on the tow truck as a result of their collision. Again, no cautions in this series, but up at the front, it's been talked about by drivers throughout practice. Draft has been huge at this track on the run-up to 10A and 10B in particular. Fitterer not electing to make the move now, electing to be patient in the early going.
I think that's the best thing for Fitterer, running in second place as we see an overtake towards the back, and here comes Ulf Olsen right back on Mike Grandy. Grandy was able to get by Olsen just for a split second down that long straightaway. You mentioned how much of a slipstream opportunity that is, JP, and he was able to utilize that, but unfortunately into the braking zone they went, and right back to 12 went Olsen side by side with Bruce Poole and Marcellus Browning as they head to 1.
Up the road, 7th spot. Greg Garris off the circuit, overran the edge of the curbs. The 10, keep it off the wall, slides it onto the track just under the racing line.
The 10 of Greg Garris off the track, wondering what happened in turn number 1. We'll grab a quick look before we get back to live pictures, but who's going into turn number 1 here, JP? Was it contact with the driver behind, or did he just overrun it? Yes, he did. Just ran a little bit too far, slammed into the rumble strip, and not a ton of suspension, not a ton of ride height on these vehicles, just kind of sent him off and into the grass, and once he was into the grass, he just got sucked right into it, and luckily was able to keep it off the wall. No damage for that number 10 machine.
Really good job to keep it off the wall, but Fitterer, after being patient on the first lap, wants to go faster. His car said so. He's up to the race lead for the first time this season. Bystrom, Morgan, and Bob Cohen are also within the top 5 drafting train that has broken away from 6th on back.
That is a huge move for the race lead. How willing is Russ Addy to sit in second? You gotta go back to 3rd, now 5th, to find the fastest lap set on the track. And it's currently Bob Cohen who ends up with that fastest lap in the number 32. Can he insert himself into this lead fight? But now it's still that 2-horse battle, making a 3-horse battle as here comes Bystrom into the picture. But now, new leader out in front. How defensive is the 29 willing to get? We've only gotten 2 laps under our belt, still over 20 to go.
Remember, Fitterer, a very strong competitor in this series in the past, up towards the front most times out, 11th in the points with just 7 starts to his name last season for reference. Still a lot of experience behind the wheel of the 29, looking to play defense for the first time, as you mentioned. See if the draft's being utilized now for the 111 to make the pass, the 111. It's Addy wanting to add himself to the top of the pylon, and Fitterer again, lots of give and take, lifting down the straightaway.
I think that was a good move for Fitterer to just kind of let Addy go by, because he knew if he was going to stay on that throttle, it might have led to a side-by-side moment going into the braking zone of the final chicane. I think that was smart from Fitterer to just stay behind. He let him by relatively easily because he knows that he was able to get by him once. If he keeps him reeled in, he'll be able to get by him again as Paul Stump from P6 sets the fastest lap of the race, a 1:16.7 in comparison to the drivers up here at the front. 1:17.3 for Addy, a 1:17.7 for Donald Fitterer.
Keep in mind, when it comes to this respective series, there is a bonus point for those who keep it incident-free to the checker flag, depending on the amount of completed laps towards that mark. So that's something to keep an eye on. Fast lap, still critical in terms of showcasing some momentum in the way things are turning. Still, the top 3 really turning fast grouping times. John Morgan, in fact, should say. Already just about out of the top 3's draft. Bystrom's just been a bystander throughout the fight.
Yeah, at this point, he's just sitting there watching this lead battle happen in front of him, but It's only about a 10.5 gap as here's the dive to the lead, trying to get it as Fitterer. Is he going to get the elbows out? No, he won't. Surrenders that spot through the apex.
No change up towards there, but major contact going off through 6 and 7. Pierre Dion had a massive stack-up trigger with 3+ cars. Steve Greenwood getting the worst of it. They get rolling, though, for the most part, in the back pack of the field.
See what happened here to Pierre Dion. Going through the S's up the hill. Looks like it happened around this point.
Would be the next corners.
There.
6 and 7. Watch the send. This is after the send in the next corner.
There's the send to the bottom. Dion has to give up that spot. Did he make contact? Oh, yes, he did. Just different braking zones from either one of those drivers. And there's that sack up you mentioned, JP. It looked like relatively not a ton of damage to any of those cars. So luckily, they'll all be able to continue on the track. But just unfortunate move. Just one of those things about road course racing these drivers got to worry about is everybody has a different braking zone.
Something's wrong with the 5th place car. Bob Cohen is trying to pull off the track and nearly hits 2 cars. What is going on with the 32? The top 5 has had the pack broken apart. They were just closing up Josh to the top 3, and then he slows down to 90 miles an hour down the straightaway.
Quick look at that replay, and he did just slow down. We got to go back a little bit further. What on earth happened to the 32? It was exactly right, JP. He just slowed down out of nowhere.
One car goes off in the grass to avoid, and then the situation, able to figure things out here. It was while it was coming out of turn 7.
Hardware failure, maybe? It looks like his wheel still works. Possible throttle issues?
Possible. He is back going, but that is a major pack shaker-upper because right before that point, Paul Stump and Donald Poole, along with him and John Morgan, had all reeled in the top 3 within a second or so, from wing to wing. Not so much now. In fact, 5th and 6th have lost a ton of time from that.
So at 7th place, Randy Shoemake now back about 3 seconds as the battle for the lead continues on. Donald Fitterer back to that top spot. Make this lead battle 4 cars strong, though. Here comes John Morgan to join the fight.
Morgan wanting to try and shuffle things forward, and keep in mind when it comes to the case of Morgan, we mentioned the Gentleman Driver Award. That's an award for the driver who completes incident-free races, essentially. Has the cleanest record. As one driver is off the track, it's Barry Reynolds. It's Barry Hills off the circuit, top 10 before the incident.
Now, as it going through the final chicane, I saw a shake-up on our timing screen. Quick look at this. It was going right in, a little bit of door banging, a little bit of contact, and around they went. Luckily, only Barry Hills was involved in it. Oh, it looked like a separate incident behind. There was another driver getting turned around through the final chicane, but another one of these just small incidents, JP. Not a ton of damage to either machine, so they're able to continue on and stay on this racetrack. Barry Hills, however, has come down into the pit lane. Looks like he's going to grab his one allocated fast repair when he's down there.
These drivers, this series, continuing to shuffle it out. A majority of the championships during the PM18 era have gone to the drivers 1-2. That being Fitterer and Addy. This time Fitterer holds on as Bystrom trying to take advantage of the give and take from Fitterer. The last time Fitterer won the championship, season 17, a 2-time champion in this chassis.
You can see this battle for first separated by just about 6/10 on the track. Paul Stump sets another fastest lap of the race, but the main eyes are on this lead fight. Still in the lead, it's Russ Addy, Donald Fitterer behind, and as long as Addy and Fitterer continue to trade blows back and forth, I think Bystrom is going to get into the mix quicker than I think he is expecting, or that we're expecting, because if they go side by side, that's just going to slow both of your leaders down. And what is Gary Bystrom going to do? Is he going to make a diving move 3 wide if the cards fall into his favor? Is he going to sit in third and just kind of wait around for either of them to wreck? And there goes Fitterer spinning.
Fitterer from second spot loops it at the bottom of the track. The 29 gets rolling, but Fitterer out of contention for the battle for the race lead, loses 7 seconds with the spin coming out of turn 7.
The car got light, and that is all it took. There's the replay. Just maybe a little bit too much on the throttle, JP, and that's all it took. I mentioned at the top of the show, these things do not have a lot of downforce. They have very, very thin, narrow tires, not a ton of grip, and that is exactly what happens. You just get on the throttle a little bit too much and just spins the car right around.
So just like that, the pack is 5 cars strong for the race lead. And the major thing starting to notice, not just the fast laps by Donald Poole, who we've seen at the last moment making the pass for 4th last time around, but also some of the aero wash coming in the middle of the tighter corners, and the S's in particular before the drafting sections. John Morgan in particular struggling rotation-wise.
How long can he struggle in third? Now Gary Bystrom moves into second, and Morgan has a big battle in his mirror with Donald Poole and Paul Stump. They are tucked in right behind each other's gearbox at the current moment as Morgan sits edge of the podium. Is he going to try and defend any possible moves by Poole or Stump? Is he going to try and focus forward to reach Bystrom and Addy? Remember the gap between Addy and when your second place driver was up here, Donald Fitterer, before getting looped around. They were at the difference of about 2 to 3 tenths per lap. Now that gap for the lead is about 5 tenths as one driver ducks the tire into the dirt going through the carousel.
Able to hold on to it though. Still a bit of a checkup again for that pack. Morgan needing to close up a bit of time. Bystrom 6 tenths back of Russ Addy. Fitterer still is 8 seconds back. Russ, things have settled. Mike McCormick is 10 seconds back. Bruce Poole and company are battling it hard as well for 8. And keep in mind, the driver who is currently in the last position, who could be amongst those starting at the front next time out. Later on this evening, Jerry Kerr in 30th. It's worth noting as you see just the difference in this section, Morgan versus Poole alone.
He's going to have a little bit of a slipstream heading through turn 6 and 7, but he can't get the move done. Not sure if he didn't get close enough, maybe not going for that move just yet, but we go on board with Donald Poole in pursuit of John Morgan in front, and here's the massive straightaway. Here's the massive slipstream opportunity. If F1 cars race here on the iRacing service, this is a DRS zone, and you can see creeping up, creeping up. Is he going for the move? Yes, he will. To the inside for third goes Donald Poole into the chicane. Will it end in heartbreak? No, it won't. Before they even get to the apex, JP, Donald Poole to third.
Donald Poole with a nice pass and a nice move in turn. And for Donald Poole, keep in mind, among the drivers looking to try and build up momentum from the second half of last season. A couple podiums picked up in the later stages of season 22. Poole, one of the quickest cars on the track right now. We've seen the fastest laps coming from Poole and Stump, who have been together most of this run.
It looks like this lead group is starting to pull away, mentioning the top 2. And this third, fourth, fifth place group is still staying intact, but they're losing touch of the top 2. And I'd say even Gary Bystrom is starting to lose touch of Russ Addy in front of him. Gap went from about 5 tenths, went down to 4 tenths, and now back up to 9 tenths. It looks like Addy with a mistake. That's going to move Bystrom into the battle for the lead once again. It takes one mistake, JP, to change the picture of the lead, and it looks like it might, as he's within 2 tenths down the straightaway.
All of a sudden, from 7 tenths back to the lead goes Bystrom if he can hold the inside. The 64 gets the deeper brakes, Addy gives it to him. Bystrom up to the point. At the same time, Shoemaker's hit the wall and crash. Addy nearly crashes himself trying to dive it back. That doesn't work 10 out of 10 times.
Luckily able to keep his car on the track, and this is going to get interesting. Every time Addy's been moved down into second place, he has gotten the lead back. Next opportunity, when is that opportunity going to come for the 111? You're on board with the last season's champion now as they go back up the hill through the S's, one of the most challenging parts of this racetrack, and Bystrom is still keeping that gap at about 3.5 tenths down this long going back straight away, JP. It could spell disaster for Bystrom if Addy is able to get a good run off turn 7 and keep that slipstream momentum up, but he gets a little bit loose. That is exactly the opposite of what Addy needed.
A big bobble for Addy. That cost him time, so things starting to dissipate quickly, it seems. We mentioned the team title last season. Addy starting to slip. As mentioned, Josh, moments ago, Shoemake crashed coming out of turn 5.
We'll see if we can grab a replay of what happened to Shoemake as the battle for the lead calms down here for just a moment. Looked like going through the S's here, JP, and the 3 just got spun around. Let's see where it happened and exactly how it happened. I mentioned this is a very tricky portion of this racetrack. Did he get too far up on the curb? No, just looked like he got a little bit loose off the corner, and unluckily, tire barriers were right there, and that's all it wrote for Randy Shoemake.
Not enough to break the back chassis and immediately towed the car to the pit lane, you see. Pit crew, all they can do for now is stare until the repairs and the tow can be done. There is a fast repair available. Here's the tough thing. It's about, from that distance around the track, a 2-minute tow time to get back to pit lane.
It looks like on my timing screen he either took the fast repair at an earlier point, or it looks like that tow might have completed. It did. So the tow completed. Yes. He does have that fast repair now. Scored in 27th, 1 lap down, however, and with no full course cautions. That's really going to spell the end of Randy Shoemake's race. His only driver that he is now battling with will be Richard Colomby, who is 44.5 seconds behind the number 3 currently.
Big mistake for the race leader, and Bystrom nearly off the circuit. Addy again tries to make the pass going to turn 11. Again, that doesn't work. Look who's here. It's Donald Poole. Side by side for the lead. Poole with the popcorn seat as Addy gets the swap. Big lift as Poole nearly hits the back of the Bystrom.
Bystrom went for another crossover as well. He was not done with Russ Addy off of turn number 1, but he had to surrender the spot. Addy, an aggressive move as we go over halfway done with this opening race of the evening. 11 laps to go, and Addy goes back to the front. Donald Poole is now in this lead fight proper, but look further back. Paul Stubb, John Morgan joining this group. All of them within 2 seconds of each other. The top 5 are grouped up at Road Atlanta.
Top 5 all underneath the blanket, try to battle it out and covered by said blanket, coming to 10 laps to go. The question will be, if you're in the 4th and 5th positions, such as Stump or Morgan, how do you play this out? Because each time they've closed in, somebody makes a mistake, they have to close in again. In fact, Morgan's had to do so 2 to 3 different times so far this race alone.
I think he just has to wait for these other drivers to make a mistake, because we've seen in these lead battles at least twice, maybe 3 times now, that it is so easy to make a mistake at this track in these cars, and you lose so much time that you're just inviting the driver behind to make that move. I think Morgan needs to continue to focus forward, run some good lap times. A 1:16.691 last time by, one of the faster drivers of this top 5, and just wait for those drivers in front of him to make a mistake, and he can pick them off one by one. But with 10 to go, he cannot rely on that at this point. He needs to continue to focus forward and try and pass them on the racetrack.
Poole trying to do that, hits a little bit of the curbing in the battle for second. Not able to take advantage of the slower run from Bystrom in turn. And this green and black machine, one of the drivers to watch for, we've seen throughout this entire run. 1:16.2, the quickest lap in the draft. He's been willing and very quick in turn. On his confidence into 10A and 10B with that slipstream, how will the chance fare out this time? A little bit further back from Bystrom.
Is he going to go for an aggressive move? He doesn't have a ton of time to work with there. Could not make enough of it up down the straightaway with the draft. So he'll have to tuck in, stay behind that second place gearbox, but he tries to go to the outside to maybe make something happen through the final corner as Bystrom lost a little bit of speed. Couldn't do it. Now tucked right in, goes to the bottom for second. Not enough momentum, can't get there.
Oh, forces a mistake from Bystrom though. Bystrom off into the grass. What a situation for Bystrom. You talk about the times where you try and psych out your opponent. Poole may have done that with a bit of the indecision on the end.
Quick replay from Bystrom, got way off of the groove and into the grass. Did he keep it off the wall? Looks like he was able to, but from second place down to fifth, that has just taken him fresh out of this lead fight.
You can almost see that coming though, Josh, because sometimes you need to be able to fully commit on the pass. Poole didn't fully commit. It seemed like Bystrom was expecting the send. And where did Poole just go?
Looks like connection issues for Donald Poole, just completely lost him on the track, and there he goes coming right back. Don't like to see those connection issues, but as long as he has them, that's going to create an interesting battle for Paul Stump, because if Stump gets close enough going for a move and a connection issue happens, he'll be driving basically blind on the racetrack.
And as well, have to close up to the rest of the group, or Internati, without someone in front of them to feed them draft now. He's their buffer car.
Well, he's back, but that was a longer than just a small blip in the connection. It looks like he was gone for 2 to 3 seconds, which if it happens again, that could change what happens up here at the front. But at the current moment, Poole is back, still the fastest driver on the track with a 1:16.255 to his name.
Out for the lead, getting more and more intriguing as this first race of 2 for the day goes on. Addy leading by 4/10, has led 11 of the 16. 3 laps being led by Bystrom, 2 by Fitterer. Both of them have had mistakes in this race and are working together 8 seconds back. Stump and Morgan also are in this lead group, approaching the 7 to go mark this time, too far back for Poole. As a matter of fact, some communication for some, possibly thinking strategy-wise in terms of helping each other. In fact, Poole trying to help out with Stump and Morgan as they'll dodge a wrecked car. Meanwhile, the battle for 5th, side by side, Fitterer and Bystrom fighting it on out for 5th place in this race.
Bystrom gets the spot, but Fitterer a golden crossover move off the chicane and give the spot back to Fitterer as quickly as Bystrom was able to take it. Bruce Poole looks like he got turned around in the chicane, loses the spot to Cohen and Grandy. We go back up to the front, still to the tune of about a half second between these top 2. Go back another half second, you find Stump. Go back another half second, you'll find Morgan at the edge of the top 4.
Oh, trouble Poole! Poole nearly into the wall! Donald Poole saves it. Here comes Paul Stump. What a save from Donald Poole!
Keeps the car under him, and here comes Paul Stump in the 54 to now try and fight for second. Does he have enough momentum down this straightaway and enough of a slipstream? Gap currently is starting to look the way of Paul Stump as it goes inside 2/10. Does he have enough to play with? He'll go to the inside in the chicane.
Not fully committed for the send though. They try and close up 8/10 to get back up to Addy. Now lap traffic says hi. That's Steve Greenwood. What in the world?
He'll let the leaders go by relatively unscathed, but unfortunately just the way that chicane worked and when they caught him, JP, Donald Poole ended up losing a bit of time. Down to 8/10 now, the gap for the race lead. Paul Stump able to keep his gap relatively the same at 3/10. Now he has to go back a full second to find John Morgan, who sits in 4th. Go back 6 seconds to find Donald Fitterer now at the edge of the top 5. He's still in a 2/10 gap battle with Gary Bystrom at the edge of the top 5.
We've seen that battle already go back and forth a couple times here. And at this point, it's clear with how they've been fighting and the pace currently being set by the race leaders, they won't get up to them. It's down to a battle to try and get a top 5 to start off with a solid benchmark coming into race 2 where you never know what's going to happen with the invert.
That invert is going to be so crucial because is anybody going to, you mentioned strategy trying to help each other out, is anybody going to use a bit of strategy with the invert?
Poole's in the grass again! Poole put the right side tires in the grass up through turn 9, loses ground yet again, Stump again can't take advantage. Another bobble coming out as Poole gains time on the exit. Addy losing ground with 5 to go.
Under a half second now, that gap for the race lead. He gained about a 10th down that straightaway, wondering if Addy's starting to lose a bit of speed through the corners. A 1:17.0 last time by for Addy. Compare that to Donald Poole, a 1:16.659. We'll throw Paul Stump into the mix as well. 1:16.742 last time by. The lap times for the top three.
You know what could be a trouble spot, though, coming up? Lap traffic is a hope. How about 4 laps to go coming up this time? And it's a heavy steam of traffic. 29, 27, and 24th on the board are up the track, and that could become a factor for the race lead.
They're going to catch them down this straightaway, I believe. And how is that going to affect what Donald Poole does here? He's got momentum. Now 3/10 is the gap. He's gaining a bit of time on Russ Addy in front. Does he try and use any of the lap traffic as a pick to try and get by Russ Addy? 4 to go at the line. They won't catch him going into the carousel this time by, but they're going to catch them soon. About 2 to 3 cars they might catch by the time that checkered flag flies.
Bit of smoke kicked up on the racetrack, not from that group. Clean track for now for these drivers, but the draft now being fed to Addy for the lap cars. Poole getting the double toe from it. Lap team to be the patience marker, because now that first car within a car length, Jerry Kerr, moves way off the racing line. There goes step 1.
4 laps to go. 2/10 now as they go through the S's. I think starting to realize Russ Addy's weak points is Donald Poole, because whenever Russ Addy loses a bit of time, he's right on his gearbox, still with the fastest lap of the race, and ran 4/10 quicker than Russ Addy last time by the start-finish line.
Poole with a good chance, possibly coming up here. Big bobble for Richard Colombe as he tries to move out of the way. Addy tries to get trapped off of the lap car. Able to get some of it from the Dollarama back machine. They try and avoid the green and black machine on the right side of the track. Donald Poole and his green and black machine not able to gain any ground in turn. If anything, this is helping Addy, this traffic.
It helped him down the straightaway, but now as they go right back through the chicane, a perfect chicane from Donald Poole, and he keeps Russ Addy reeled in. 3 to go. Can he keep him reeled in for 3 more laps? And I think more importantly, JP, how aggressive is Russ Addy willing to get to keep this race lead? He has relatively a lot on the line with being the reigning champion and trying to take the checkered flag in the opening round.
He absolutely does right now, and he's been dominating throughout this entire run. Poole with a massive send, gains 3 car lengths on the braking alone.
That is not what Donald Poole needed, and I'm wondering now what's Paul Stump going to do, because we've talked about at the beginning stages of this race, if you're at the tail end of a battle, just kind of watch what's going on in front and maybe use mistakes to your advantage. He can't do that now. With 2 to go, if he wants to win this race, he has to get down and dirty, get the elbows out, and get into this lead battle, but he still just cannot get back to the gearbox of Donald Poole. As they go back to the chicane, he's got 4/10 still to play with.
Now they have a purple car, the last lap car within range for them to deal with. That is Gene Moore, who's feeding draft to the race leader. Addy picking up 3/10 coming out of 10A and 10B. Now picking up another 10th with the straight, trying to break the toe. Could this be enough of a cushion for Addy if he can take advantage, or will the traffic cost him time? It's the latter. A big checkup into the S's. There goes all the time gain of the straightaway. Here comes Poole.
2 to go. They still have not gotten by that lap traffic either. What can Donald Poole do to use that lap traffic to his advantage? Lap traffic goes way off the racetrack, able to let these 3 battle on and get by. 2.5 tenths into 6 and 7. What will Donald Poole be able to do off of this last corner going onto the back straightaway? Can he use the slipstream right on Addy's gearbox? He'll have the move going into the chicane this time.
Will Poole take the move or wait for the white flag is the question. Stump trying to get the double toe. No snake move yet from Addy. Poole within a car length. Coming up to 10A. Tries to go right, fakes it to the left. Squeezes back towards the right. Squeezes Addy off the line. Poole back to the race lead. Coming up to the white flag.
White flag this time by, and Poole now the new race leader. Addy goes forward in the final corner, side by side, almost running Poole off the track. Addy's gonna lead that lap.
Addy trying to hold on to the preferred line for turn 1. Keeping it up is Poole. Poole wiggles off the groove. Addy back to the point. Back single file for the top 3 for the S's for the final time. Pressure is on for the final run to 10A and 10B.
On board with Poole as they go back up the hill. Addy makes a little bit of a mistake, gets a little bit loose off of the final corner of the S's. Can Poole do exactly what he did last time by? He needs to try and protect the crossover. Is he going to do it sooner? No, he won't. Going back to the back straightaway this time. Slipstream is needed for Poole. Can he hold off Addy if he does make the move?
That's the major question. 2 car lengths the difference. Left side being hugged by Addy, trying to play defense. No move to the right side whatsoever from Addy yet. Poole tries to fake him out. Poole takes away the left side. Stump watches. Contact. They scrape tires. They nearly bump again. Poole breaks it in. Addy tries to go for the cross. Addy gets the pole. Poole gets loose. Checker flag up at the stand. Poole plays defense. Holds on. Poole takes into the line and wins race 1 of the season.
What a finish and what a win by Donald Poole. He did exactly what he needed to do and held off Russ Addy when it mattered. Let's take another look at this move, JP. Picture perfect from Poole. He made it exactly when he had to, got to the inside in the chicane, and just did not let Russ Addy go by. Contact ensued as well.
At least once or twice with the tires as well, absolutely. You see right here, Poole knew what was happening with that crossover, had a big bubble, and didn't allow Addy to go for the cross back to the right with that run.
Across the line, Addy tried to move back and get that spot, but he could not do it. Waiting on the last handful of drivers to come across the start-finish line as the checkered flag has flown. But what a start to the evening. If that's any indication of how race 2 is going to go, we're going to see 2 incredible races tonight, as that one was a nail-biter right down to the time they crossed the start-finish line.
A very much so nail-biter. As the last of the drivers cross the stripe, race 1 is closed. In the end, Donald Poole holds on in a barn burner by 78/100ths of a second to win over Russ Addy. He led 1 lap. Paul Stump rounds out the top 3 with John Morgan in 4th. Gary Bystrom gets a top 5, holding off Donnell Fitterer in that battle for position, half a second the difference amongst them. Mike McCormick, Celis Bruning, Bob Cohen, and Mike Randy, your top 10. 11th spot went to Bruce Poole. Despite some mistakes later in the race, Douglas Beasley in 12th position. Ulf Olsen, Greg Garris after his off-track excursion goes to 14th. Pierre Dion after the stack-up gets to 15th with Peter Hallstrom in 16th. David Bradley, Barry Hills, Franz Brink, and Eugene Clark, the top 20. JC Hay rounds out the top 21. Rory Collins finishes 22nd. Michael Bailey in 23rd. Gene Moore amongst the lap traffic in 24th. Then Greenwood, Shoemake, Colombe, Love, Kerr, and Setzer, the top 30. To round out the grouping, Setzer had a DNF to start off the day. What a first race. What a start to the season, to say the very least, for campaign number 23 in the history of this series. Josh, the excitement levels have to be high.
And what a way to start off the heels of last season as well. And we had that battle involving last season's champion and just a lot of drivers that we didn't really talk about. Paul Stump started in 7th. He ended up in 3rd. Donald Poole started edge of the top 5. He ended up surviving and grabbing that win. A fantastic run to the finish and kept it clean as well. No contact. There was some contact made, but no contacts leading to incidents either. Everybody just making mistakes on their own and a lot of single car incidents up at the front.
Absolutely some fun, to say the very least. Some of the drivers now getting all sorted before race 2, and one is standing by, in fact. Russ Addy standing by currently. Finished 2nd. We mentioned the defending champion. Russ, what a fight. Talk about your perspective.
I'm sweating. It was a good race. Tough race. I thought I had it 2 laps in the end. Back markers were there. I mean, they have their own race. So I lost the slight gap that I thought I had.
It was a thrower, to say the very least. Were you expecting what happened there with Donald Poole?
I knew he'd try. I mean, you have to. It's racing. Yeah, we touched a couple times, I think, into that last chicane, and luckily neither of us went off. So, finished second. That's fine. Good start.
Now, race 2 of the night. The invert to factor in. Thoughts of entering the second race?
No, we don't invert the second one. We keep the second one the same. On Mondays we do a USF 2000 race, and we invert it. So we'll log off and then requalify, and hopefully do it all over again with the one more position up.
Well, with that note, we'll let you get to that then.
Thanks, and thanks for televising. It's always good to have you guys here.
Once again, that is Russ Addy, second place in this one. And Josh, you heard the discussion there. Pardon us on that mark. Apologies on that perception, as that's in reference, I believe, to the PM18 indeed. But regardless, race 2 will have a lot of momentum to build off of regardless, with some of the drivers really shuffling about.
And with them re-qualifying as well, another opportunity for a lot of the fast drivers to showcase themselves in hot lap form. Mentioned Donald Poole, who ended up getting the win, also got the fastest lap of the race. Can he run another 1:16.255, run even faster than that in qualifying, and start on the pole for the second race? He's got a lot of momentum coming off a race win to start off the evening. We have a whole nother 24-lap race coming up.
With that, we'll take a quick break. Race 2 coming up in just a few moments. You're watching Race Spot for 60+ racing adventures to start Season 23. Welcome back to RaceSpot's coverage of 60-plus racing adventures for Season 23 and its opener here at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside the booth tonight is Joshua Lee as we make our way to race 2 of 2 of the evening. For those who watched race 1 a few minutes ago, it was a barn burner to say the very least. Back and forth on the last lap to decide the race winner. Lap traffic played a factor in the laps leading up to that mark, and in turn, setting the tempo and setting the stage for what should be a thrilling second race of the night, with plenty of drivers looking to try and build on the momentum from the first race of the evening, Josh.
And it's going to be interesting because they're all re-qualifying as well, so they have to prove themselves a second time out here on the track. It was Russ Addy that was so close to getting the win in race number 1. I'm interested to see if he can do it again. He's on track trying to prove himself again in qualifying and starting on the pole.
Some drivers, keep in mind, also looking to recover from mistakes and what could have been for a few. Danielle Fitterer in particular, who was second in the board for qualifying, but also spun from the top 2 in the early going. Now looking to try and do so again. You also have others such as Gary Bystrom looking to do the same. They were 5th and 6th in the last race.
And as we focus on Russ Addy, another driver that was very close to getting that win in race number 1 was Gary Bystrom, one of the faster drivers when it came to running on the racetrack, and now trying to get a good qualifying lap in. It's very interesting, JP, because they kind of have to switch their brain from going from race mode back to qualifying mode and then right back to race mode. Very interesting how the 60-plus racing adventures works here, where instead of going from one race right into another like you would a heat to a feature, you got to go from race back to qualifying and running hot laps again.
That in turn can be very challenging. What's that experience like for yourself when you're on the racetrack, if you've been in this case before?
Very, very difficult, I've found, because you have to go from racing, which is very, very different in the way that you run on this racetrack, versus qualifying. You're back into hot lap mode, which is trying to push as much speed out of the car as possible. And on the racetrack, you're really trying to react to what's happening around you. You're reacting more to the other cars versus reacting to the racetrack. Here, it is you versus yourself and the racetrack, trying to just lay down the fastest lap. And Gary Bystrom did exactly that, going to the top of the board.
2 laps for drivers to be able to set their qualifying times. Almost everybody in the field, 21 in precisely, have already set times so far this session. 27 entrants for race 2. There is one new entry who has yet to set a time yet. It is Oyvind Andersen, who is one of those coming in for the second of the 2 races, because remember, it's the best out of the 2 races that go towards the points in these cases we've seen throughout the campaign's histories here.
Up towards the top 5, very, very familiar names here. Paul Stump to 2nd, Donald Fitterer to 3rd, Greg Garris to 4th. Make that Mike McCormick with a great lap up into 3rd. But I was going to mention, as Randy Shoemake goes to 4th, we did just for a moment have an exact same lap time. But now as the second laps go in, Gary Bystrom is going to extend his lead at the top at a 1:16.595.
Bystrom trying to bounce back from the troubles we talked about. Russ Addy bounces up to 2nd. About a 10th and a half back of the pole time, finishing up the qualifying run for that machine. Most drivers, in fact, have completed their 2 laps. Ulf Olsen looking to complete his 2nd currently, as well as Peter Holstrom. Also have Anderson on track. Michael Bailey crashed during his lap. Jerry Kerr is yet to hit the racetrack and is the only one who has not attempted a time yet or turned a lap on the racetrack this qualifying session. That driver has already indicated they want to start at the back. Anderson finishes up in the 122 flats. Wolf. And just like that, just about everybody has completed their qualifying runs pretty quickly, in fact.
13th place currently on the board is Ulf Olsen. across the line. Can he improve on his 117.7? Yes, he can. Can he improve in position? Yes, he can as well. Up from 13th to 12th. Won't go up a ton, but will gain on one more spot before we go green. Randy Shoemake looks like he's still grabbing some practice laps on the track, but Gary Bystrom, as he enters into the pit lane, an amazing lap from him, 116.595, about a 10th faster than second place currently Paul Stump.
Only one driver yet to indicate they're done with qualifying, and somebody who cannot complete a second lap for a time, Michael Bailey. That driver's already left the cockpit. So drivers will have about 4 minutes as a breather potentially in turn there. Since in the sim, keep in mind, if all drivers indicate they're done in qualifying, it can accelerate the qualifying process. Not every driver's indicated that, so it will be a few moments. When those few moments here, Bystrom absolutely flying again on track, but the main trend noticed, your top four were amongst your top four in the early going in the last race, two of which made the mistakes we mentioned, two of which were battling up for that race win, but many others are either not taking the grid for race 2, or in the case of, say, John Morgan, much deeper in the pack for qualifying.
Interesting to note John Morgan closer down to the edge of the top 10, but we have a handful of drivers at the front that you mentioned that were running for the win. How about Mike McGormick? We didn't really talk about him at all in the opening race, and now he sits at the edge of the top 5 with a 117.1 in qualifying. I'm interested to see what Mike McGormick can do going into this second race, if he can use that great qualifying effort to kind of propel him, give him a little bit more momentum through the race and use the race pace to his advantage.
We'll see how that plays out for Mike, who was amongst the top 10 runners for much of the last run. Track record from McCormick coming into today, an average start in the top 10. In fact, 10th position, average finish 15th. Just the one podium in 2022 last season, however, has one victory from 2021. Still about 2.5 minutes to go here. What else do you feel drivers will be adjusting to outside of the quality to race to quality trend here? Now that they picked up some notes possibly for race 2.
I think we're going to see the battles get a little bit more aggressive. And I say that because now they're used to the track. Going into race number 1, maybe if they didn't have a ton of practice, they only had 20 minutes of practice to start race 1, plus that 10-minute qualifying, they might not have been used to the track and how the track raced on the car. So they might have taken those battles a little bit more carefully. And I think now with another 10 minutes of practice and this 10 minutes of qualifying, they're going to have an exact idea of what their car is going to do on this track, especially racing around other cars, that they might go a little bit more aggressive and really push the limits of this track and this car together.
Those limits absolutely have been pushed for 10A and 10B. It's been really intriguing, though, the give and take seen by the drivers. Again, lots of respect shown by these members of the community. You have to remember, when it comes to 60+ racing adventures, 60+ is the key word out of that in terms of the demographics coming into the series this season and throughout its history. 60+ in terms of the user base for this series.
And this series always tends to put on some exciting racing and some clean, exciting racing as well. We saw exactly that in race number 1. I mentioned it at the tail end when we were wrapping up that first race that the only incidents we really saw were single car spins at the front. All of the diving moves we saw for the lead did not lead to incidents, and any incidents that we saw containing multiple machines really was just some small taps, not a ton of damage, and a majority of the field, I believe we only had 2 to 3 fast repairs taken at the end of the race. And after 24 laps, that really shows the racecraft of these drivers in the 60+ Racing Adventures League.
Drivers getting their gloves all set to go, the racing gloves specifically, to be able to go racing in the next 20 seconds. Again, 27 entry-ins for race 2 of the day. Your race winner from the first of the 2 for today, in fact. Amongst those, not setting times on circuit, believe, in fact, not there for race 2. Bruce Poole is there, though, so A Poole is in the field as the drivers look to try and swim their way to the podium here today in Georgia. Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta all set to host the second of the 2 races for the opening round of Season 23. Gary Bystrom picks up the pole award for this one. For Bystrom, it is his 14th career pole in this series. Paul Stump starts in second, a 10th back, with Russ Addy and Donnell Fitterer in the top 4. Mike McCormick improves in qualifying to get up to 5th alongside Randy Shoemate. 7th position goes to Greg Garris, who looks to try and bounce back after a mistake in the early portions of race 1, while John Morgan starts in the Hornet's Nest in 8th. Bob Cohen and Steve Greenwood, who had plenty of attrition points last time out, starts in 10th. Mercedes Broning starts in 11th with Ulf Olsen inside the top 12. Barry Hills had a spin in race 1, will try and recover in race 2 alongside Gene Moore, who starts mid-pack this time. Pierre Dion starts in 15th with Bruce Poole in the 16th position. 17th goes to J.C. Hay with Eugene Clark in 18th, Douglas Beasley and Peter Hallstrom, the top 20. David Bradley, along with Richard Colombe in the top 22, Earl Setzer and Robert Love, 23rd and 24th. Anderson, the last driver in qualifying, 5 seconds off the pole time. Michael Bailey and Jerry Kerr do not set times. The pole time, as mentioned, 1:16.595 for your rolling grid here from Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. We've talked a lot about the expectations for race 2. Your keys, have they changed? What would you change for those keys in turn?
Well, I think after seeing what happened in race number 1, I think instead of avoiding other people's incidents, I'd say avoid your own incidents. Because we saw a handful of drivers just make the smallest mistakes, and you cannot make a mistake in these cars. As much as it is an entry level into the open wheel scene, you make a small mistake and you will be punished for it. You cannot make up a ton of time in these cars once you have made that mistake. So they need to just run their own race, run the racetrack, and of course focus on what's happening around you, but just focus on minimizing the mistakes. Don't hit the throttle too hard, gradually getting back on that throttle with the very, very tight and thin rear tires that these cars have. Don't have a ton of grip to work with, so make sure that you are using all of that to your advantage and just trying to minimize any possible mistakes they can make on the track.
Absolutely, especially with different front row runners here for this race. As a matter of fact, the drivers who started at row 1 are starting same lines, but in the second row of lines here in turn. How do you try and time it up when you go from control car to not control car in a race-to-race scenario such as this?
I think ultimately going into turn number 1, you just got to be careful with that braking zone, because we saw it happen where all the drivers have a different braking zone. If you get on the brakes too late, you're going to be slamming into the driver in front of you, and guess what? That's not just your race over, that's their race over as well. So just be careful going into that opening braking zone. Make sure you're getting on the brakes cleanly, maybe getting on the brakes a little bit earlier. Yes, you'll lose a bit of time, but ultimately you'll make it through turn number 1, and that is the first step to making it across the checkered flag, is surviving the opening turn.
Wishes to good lucks from the rest of the competitors coming up over the radio as they get all set to go. 24 laps again up on the board, race 2 of the day. Several drivers looking to improve their run from race 1 to end off round 1 of this season's action. iRacing safety car zipping its way towards the pit lane, going under the underpass. Bystrom trying to pick up the pace already at 70 miles an hour. Quickly hits the gas. Will he get to the green in time? Yes, he does. Green flag is up, off and away for Bystrom. And a massive, massive launch. No penalty for Bystrom with the jump.
Through turn number 1, you got to go back a little bit to find the first side-by-side moment, as same thing that happened in the opening race here, JP. Everybody getting single file relatively quickly, as it looked like that was one of the battles around P8 with Greg Garris, and a little bit of a side-by-side moment, but as they go up the hill, one driver's around and into the grass. That looks to be Marcellus Browning around.
Running indeed into the inside wall. Blue and white machine trying to get rolling with the matte blue, able to do so as the rest of battles build up. Bruce Poole amongst those wrecking, coming up through that section as well. Everyone else getting through pretty cleanly. All while the race leader is still Bystrom off the 10A and 10B for the first time.
into the chicane for the first time here in race number 2. How is this going to work? And they get aggressive for the race lead. Here comes Paul Stump. He already wants it.
Oh, and Bystrom gets pinched off by Paul Stump. Stump had been running in the top 3 most of the last race. Now he leads to start race 2.
And now Bystrom's going to have Russ Addy to deal with. Here comes the 111 back to the picture. Remember, he finished in second place by about a tenth of a second in the opening race. The season 22 champion wants to get back to the top of the podium. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Russ Addy, too, we already see him getting a little bit darty. Remember, the patience game was coming in on the first lap. Not so much this time. As Addy tries to see how Bystrom plays this, the top 7 have already broken away from Gary Sombach. Top 7 have a 1.5 second cushion to the rest of the field currently on the track.
This front group is not pulling away from anybody that much. It looks like the top 4 relatively close together, and you have to go back about a second and about 2/10 to find Mike McCormick at the edge of the top 5. Back through the chicane, and nothing from Bystrom this time by. Paul Stump continues to hold the lead. It'll be 22 to go at the line. Still a long way to go, as those opening lap incidents only taking Pierre Dion and Bruce Poole into the pit lane for their faster pairs. Everybody else still on the track.
That was all from those 2 specifically, should rather say, involving an incident coming out of turn 5 on the opening lap. Both have completed their toes in faster pairs dead even. As you see the fastest lap going to Bystrom in the first flyer. That time around a 1:17.2. Same track conditions, keep in mind, as race 1, just a 1 degree difference.
Look at how close Russ Addy was to the gearbox of Gary Bystrom that last time by. They got close together, no contact made, but I think Russ Addy is starting to get a little bit antsy sitting in 3rd. And how about Donald Fitterer?
Oh,
He's back here and the leader is around.
Paul Stump loops it from the point. Paul Stump with a major mistake drops back to 4th. Oh, in the lead side by side with that. Addy is let free for the lead. Bystrom to the left. Fitterer trying to join into the party as well, as Addy allows the Bystrom car to outbrake him as he tries to set up the cross.
Bystrom to the lead. Addy had an opportunity to take it. Wasn't feeling too aggressive. He let Bystrom go. Donald Fitterer now to 3rd, and Paul Stump has lost a ton of time. 1.3 seconds now removed from this lead battle as Addy goes forward again.
Oh,
they make contact.
They touch. There goes Bystrom. Bystrom again is sliding to the grass off through turns 1 and 2. Off to the S's. Addy to the lead.
What on earth happened there? We'll go back, grab a replay. And that was an intense moment for this race lead. You're on board with Gary Bystrom. How did this contact happen? Did Addy go to the inside? Did Bystrom not know he was there? They kind of met in the middle there, JP. I don't know.
There was a major squeeze. We'll say it looked like there, Josh, and we've seen a lot of squeezing in that section. They've squeezed a little bit tighter even at a couple times. That time causes trouble, but here's the bigger trouble. If you're Addy, seen a little bit of a tweak around. We'll see how this is affecting the 111 as Fitterer is given the lead. As now they try and test how that 111 is going to be the rest of the way.
And how about Paul Stump? He was able to gain back a ton of time and is now right back to the back gearbox of Russ Addy. Mike McCormick still sitting in the wings. He's about a second removed from this group, but Paul Stump, with the fastest lap of the race last time by, is not giving up on lap 5. He's trying to go for the lead again, loses a bit of momentum off of turn 1.
Nearly took side-by-side battling options to Addy's right rear tire. Top 6 separate up by 2.3 seconds. Similar trends to the last race where the main pack has been around 6 to 7 cars on average. And keep in mind, that's been fluctuating the more they battle, and, well, the more bobbles we've seen throughout the race. And for a few drivers, it's Critical for some to avoid mistakes. Shoemake's amongst that grouping. Fitterer as well, Josh, based on their track records the last time out.
Take a look at Russ Addy. He was right on the back wing of Donald Fitterer, and now a huge diving move. He gets enough slipstream, and how about Paul Stump following Addy in tow and gets by Fitterer as well. Pushes the 25 to third, and now Russ Addy back to the front. Paul Stump right behind.
Paul Stump trying to add to his 8 career victories in this series, in this machine in the PM18. Coming into today, 8th all-time in the win percentage. Fast lap going to Steve Greenwood. That is in 7th position in the battle for 7th, with Bob Cohen should be referencing, as his teammate in Stump really trying to find a way around Addy.
Battle for the lead is on, and still a lot of time to go in this race. We saw in race number 1, we saw a continuous battle for the lead. Always somebody, either second, third, or fourth, that was knocking on the door of the race leader. However, we also saw 2 or 3 cars take themselves out of that lead battle with mistakes that pushed them back towards the pack. Paul Stump with a small mistake there off the exit at turn 7. Still keeps himself in the hunt at about 4/10 and a lot of slipstream here to play with. Donald Fitterer is not giving up either from third, but all these drivers need to make sure they're making no mistakes on this track to keep themselves in the hunt for the win.
Trying to find a way to mightily pull up to the back end of the Owen Black machine. Still can't do so yet. Battle was on for 5th, it's worth noting. John Morgan just had to fend off Randy Shoemake, and a major checkup has cost the 3 lots of time. In turn, has cost everybody behind McCormick time to the top 4.
Fitterer now setting the new fastest lap from P3.
Oh, big lockup. Well, that was a bit sketchy there for a second. Stump started to kick up a little bit of grass. Took a lot of grass to the right side of the curb. We've seen 1 car spin from that today.
He did not spin the car around, so he stays in this lead pack. As now the top 4 have set to a 2.8 second gap over now 5th place John Morgan in the 177. How about Mike McCormick? Yes, he's at the tail end of his group, but we didn't hear about him at all when it came to race number 1, and he's up here now in 4th trying to contend for this race win. He's a little bit too far removed to make anything happen yet, but he is getting close, and how about close? The lead battle is going the way of Paul Stump as they go through the chicane.
Stump wants to lead some laps, trying to get the most laps led in this one. Addy thinking about a look, trying to go for the switchback, coming out of turn number 12, can't get it yet. Top 4 still looking to settle things on out, coming up quickly towards halfway. And this is the chess match portion of the race, where we've seen this before. You have drivers setting fast times with the triple toe, for example, in McCormick, all trying to be positioned to battle. Randy Shoemake is out of position to battle. He had been dropping rapidly, and he has now crashed the car.
Not sure what happens to Randy Shoemake last time by, but this lead battle is not letting up as Paul Stump now commends this race with Russ Addy only back by about 2.5 tenths. Make it 3 tenths as they come out of turn 7. The 2 red-colored liveries of the 25 and 99. Fitterer and McCormick still sitting in the wings, waiting for something to happen up front. Does Addy have enough of a slipstream to make something happen in the chicane? He's gaining, he's gaining, he's gaining. And is it gonna be enough? And will he go for the move in the chicane? He stays in line right behind his fellow yellow-colored livery in the 54.
Keep in mind, these drivers using a bit of the radio to communicate. Okay, do you want to lead? Okay, here you go. Here you go. So far, Josh, that patience game is right there. And it's worth noting that Randy Shoemake is out of the pit lane after the tow. The incident we were referring to was with Greenwood in the battle for 7th spot. He's coming out right there, in fact. And he collected J.C. Hay returning to the track coming out of turn 10B. Back
through the opening S's, and worth noting that you can see how much time this lead group has put to the rest of the field. We go on board the driver that is currently sitting at the tail end of the group and off the pace, it is John Morgan. And we'll take a look at that interval between himself and the tail end of the group in front, Mike McCormick. They have Randy Shoemake between them, but about 3 seconds is the gap. Morgan with a ton of time to try and make up. And speaking of time, Paul Stump has put a good bit of time over Russ Addy. Addy's not going to be anywhere close heading into the chicane this time. Let's see, gets a huge momentum boost.
No momentum boost coming on in. Shoemake has let John Morgan go, by the way. But here's the question mark. You mentioned how far back Morgan is, as well now McCormick, who's lost touch with the draft for a moment. Right now for Morgan, no one to work with. The tough thing when it comes to a few of the drivers from the last race, in particular that green and white machine with the red trim, we've seen John Morgan lose tons of ground because he had no drafting partner.
It's interesting to talk about drafting partners anywhere other than Daytona, Talladega, or maybe Indianapolis in the Indy cars, but I think that's a great point to bring up, that you kind of need somebody to draft with and to use Slipstream just by the long straightaways. I mean, if we're in LMP2s, if we're racing Petit Le Mans, we wouldn't really talk about the straightaways here being that long or being some great drafting opportunities, but with how slow these cars race, I mean, we're running about 116, 117s around this track. It is worth noting that it is a massive slipstream and drafting opportunity down this straightaway specifically, that you kind of need somebody to work with to give you a slingshot. That's exactly what Addy's doing here, side by side for the race lead.
This time, Stump gives Addy the race lead. They trade laps back and forth. Fitterer no chances yet to be able to try and leapfrog either of them. Of note, Anderson has also just gone to the pit lane for a tow. 52 machine after more troubles. Currently, 19 drivers still running who have yet to use the faster pair as a result of incidents here in race number 2. And to bring up that major point, or put it on a bit of a bow point, John Morgan lost 4/10 in Sector 3 last time by.
Russ Addy set the fastest lap of the race, 1:16.550. Compare that to the best lap of Paul Stump, and it goes the way of Russ Addy, of course, but by a couple of tenths, a 1:16.900, that current fastest lap from Paul Stump. So in this battle for first, it's going the way of Russ Addy, and not only on the racetrack, but also in terms of lap time and leading the most laps. Of course, a bonus point for all of these drivers. They need to try and get back to the front if Paul Stump wants some points out of this one, but Russ Addy doing a great job of leading the way, trying to get a better result than second place, and there's only one way he can go to try and improve and have that point value count, and it is to win this race.
Of note, Barry Hills has just crashed from the top 10. One car incident on his own to the inside of turn 7's wall. Still, now 18 with clean cars. Traffic now to deal with. Robert Love's traffic management direction. Stop on the track and tow it, as we're down to still now 18 running in this one on the lead lap.
Looks like an issue for Robert Love as well. He pulled himself into the pit lane, but now 3 cars fighting up at the front. Mike McCormick, I'm wondering what happened to him. He's down about 2.7 seconds now. Make that 2.6 as he currently runs on the racetrack, and still with a lot of time to go. We are only about halfway done with this race, but now 3 seconds removed from your race leader. I don't think that's what Mike McCormick was looking for, but a 4th place finish here is going to be much better than his opening race finish, so at least he'll have an improvement that he can put towards the championship.
Absolutely. Fitterer also in a good spot to improve on the race 1 finish. Stump in a great position to improve on that. Greenwood as well in particular, even with the contact in the early portion of this race, is still in 7th with a good chance to build up on points. Almost everybody has the chance to say they've improved, except for 1 or 2 of those who had major troubles race 1. Now we're past the halfway point. He's still the Pied Piper at the point. Things try and settle on down for the time being. Keyword for now. And just like that, Addy jumps up in the air.
just taking that car for a little bit of a ride, going through the S's as Paul Stump sets a new fastest lap, and it was only by about 2/100ths over Russ Addy. 1:16.498 for Addy, 1:16.479 for Paul Stump. They are close in speed and close on the racetrack. He'll have an opportunity going into the chicane here. He's within that slipstream window. Question is he going to go for it, as Donald Fitterer still sits about 6/10ths back in third.
Fitterer still in that patience window at the moment. Looks like the car coming in. Let's go for the switch. And at this point, it's looking like Addy and Stump have made a silent pact, so to speak, where, you know what I mean by this, Josh, where you have the pact where you want to control the field. They're doing that where they let one driver lead for a few laps, then the next driver lead. They are near dead even on lead laps with that swap.
There will come a time where they need to stop doing that. And I'm wondering when that's going to come, because of course, when it gets down to a point, they're going to have to race for this race win. And with Stump now back to the lead, I'm wondering when that cutoff point is going to be. Kind of like in Formula One, where there's a time the team orders eventually will run out. Is it going to be with 3 to go, 2 to go? Are they going to wait till the white flag? And what if Donald Fitterer ends up into this battle? Are they going to abandon it at that point? Very interesting with 11 to go, how this lead strategy is going to work out.
And the reason I say silent on that, Mark, is they're not teammates, Josh, keep in mind. The different liveries, with the different camps, with the last season's track record, Stump working with Greenwood for reference, for example. But it's almost like they know that it's a long race and know that this helps them long term to run away from everybody else in case something does happen here. There's the swap again.
Back to the lead is your season 22 champion of Russ Addy. 10 to go at the line, and this is where we saw the lead battle get really interesting in race number 1, JP, and they're really in a world of their own. You have to go back 5 seconds from the race lead, 4.5 from Donald Fitterer to find Mike McCormick. Go back another 1.3 to find John Morgan. Go back another 2 seconds to find Bob Cohen. The closest battle on the track, other than this lead battle, is this 6th place battle between Bob Cohen, who you see just up the road in the 32, versus Steve Greenwood with a 5:55, who currently sits in P7. So these lead guys are in a world of their own, and really the closest battle on the racetrack currently as they head back to 6.
And keep in mind, when it comes to Greenwood, he entered tonight's action with the highest winning percentage based on his starts in series history. 20 wins in 63 races. Looking like that percentage going to fall down from its 32%. Green just spun it. Here comes the side-by-side for the lead with the swap again. As one driver makes a mistake, the other in their livery moves to the point.
Beautifully done for Paul Stump to get back to the front, but that battle, more than the others, has kind of put Donald Fitterer back into the picture. He loses a bit of time off of the chicane, but he still is keeping up with this lead group, and he's not as close, of course, within those intervals, but he's still there. If anything happens to either of the front two, they're going to have a mirror and a gearbox full of Donald Fitterer, as another fastest lap set by Stump, 1:16.257, getting very close to the fastest lap of the day.
Fitterer also setting a personal fastest lap there, and it's not a surprise to see those times go back and forth like that, Josh, because with this car and a lot of the open wheel machines, even with the tire wear, the less fuel in the tank, the more quicker you go.
We saw towards the tail end of the first race of the day, 1:16.255 put up by the race winner. So if Paul Stump continues on his way with the fastest lap, he could end up going under that 1:16.2 range and running a 1:16.1, which is going to be an incredibly fast time around this virtual road Atlanta. No change at the front this time as they go to the chicane. However, Russ Addy continues to stay in P2.
Of note, the battle for 6th is broken up as Steve Greenwood reached lap traffic and Randy Shoemake lost a couple seconds, starting to spray out and spread out onto the top 5 groupings overall outside the top 3. But the interesting thing amongst all this, even with things how they lay up at the front, Josh, It's worth noting Bob Cohen in particular is nearly in the draft for the top 5. We didn't mention the 32's name too much last time. That red and black machine is on the charge just outside the 1 second buffer.
Trying to catch up to John Morgan, who sits in 5th, and even then still relatively well removed from that lead battle, as Mike McCormick currently sits in 4th, 5.6 seconds back from that grouping, and you have to go back another 1.3 to find John Morgan, as well as there's the 177, and you can see Bob Cohen now there as another swap for the lead happens. 0.6 the gap back there for P6 or P5, excuse me, on the racetrack, as now back to the front goes Paul Stump.
Still trying to battle it out for the most laps led in this race. Fitterer, the only cork in that plan, who has a lead lap in this event tonight for race 2. 7 to go. Stump, most laps led for now with 8.
7 laps left, and Addy back to second place. If I'm Donald Fitterer in this scenario, I'm kind of thinking, okay, these guys are going to continue to just swap and swap and swap in front. I have to get myself into this battle. You can see how close he just got there at the exit of the S's. I think at this point, if I'm Donald Fitterer, I'm going for a move on second place to really get myself in this battle for the race lead, because eventually the time's going to run out, and we're getting close to it with 7 to go.
We've seen in race 1, the driver in 3rd didn't get the chance to make a move on either 1st or 2nd, coming in towards the final run, the 10A and 10B with the distance. Fitterer lost a lot of time right there, Josh. Those lockups really popping up, it seems. Or at least those overspeeds on entry to where it has to be really wound down for the exit. Seen a couple times.
6 to go at the line this time. Make that gap about 3.5 tenths for the lead. No update on that battle for 5th. We can give you a little bit of update further back as Gene Moore ends up getting spun around at the exit of turn 7. Single car spin, he continues on, but still nothing going on back in that battle for 5th as Bob Cohen makes up a little bit of time, but still 3 tenths that gap to him and himself and John Morgan.
They are almost within drafting distance of Mike McCormick as well, so this could become a 3-car battle for 4th position. And the interesting thing when it comes to Bob was just checking the stat marks. When it comes to Bob, he's got 24 career top 5s, none in 2022 so far in the calendar year. Chance possibly to add to those numbers, get his first top 5 of the year. And that includes last season's campaign, and that mark could be a big move coming up for the 32 here.
Battle for the lead might go the way of Russ Addy yet again, down the long back straightaway. Does he make that look to the inside of the chicane? 5 to go at the line. He does not. Lets Paul Stump continue out in front. Can Bob Cohen use the slipstream on John Morgan? A little bit of a defensive tactic there from John Morgan to try and protect the inside line, and it does work, at least for now, as Bob Cohen has to remain in P6.
Patience game continuing out here. Lonsdale's leaders still off to 1 and 2. And the interesting thing when it comes to all this, Josh, give some shout-outs to the drivers you see in top 10. A good portion of those drivers struggled race 1, a complete change of script for not just Moore, but several others.
Whoa.
There's trouble for the leaders! It is Addy with the broken suspension!
Fitterer ends up off the track too.
What just happened to Paul Stump? Stump is on his own, 7 seconds up.
We'll grab that replay now. An unbelievable incident there between our race leaders here, JP. What on earth through the S's?
Yeah, and it looks okay-ish here, just a wide run. Out he goes. Wow. And then the bad luck right there just clips him.
I think all that was Paul Stump going a little bit too wide and coming back on the track right about there. And Addy thought he might have cleared him, ends up coming back in and just so unfortunate for Donald Fitterer as well, an innocent bystander in this one.
Yeah, and Fitterer just getting clipped, you've seen, but now with under 4 to go, Paul Stump, as a result of that, is leading by 6.7 seconds, but that lead is slowly dropping to Mike McCormick. Is there enough time for McCormick, Cohen, Morgan, anybody to get there?
I don't think there is enough time. It's 3 to go at the line this time by. They're going to have to make up about 2 seconds per lap to even catch up to Paul Stump. It's one thing to catch, another thing to pass. And even Bob Cohen was able to get by John Morgan. He's putting a bit of a gap on him, but he still needs to make up a ton of time on Mike McCormick in front of him as well.
That's a huge, huge thing to consider absolutely in this mark. But for Paul Stump, just looking to close it on out as a result of the trouble around him in involving that yellow machine. 54 coming to 3 to go. That battle you see building up for third, though. Going in Morgan. 9 seconds back of Paul Stump. Not close enough for the send back as Morgan. For Cohen, by the way, this would be career finish in third, number 4 in his time in this series.
And with 3 to go, he's within 4.5 tenths of Bob Cohen in front, but nobody holding a candle currently to Paul Stump at the front of this field. 6.4 seconds the gap now, 6.5 JP as he goes back up the hill. They need to make up a ton of time. Paul Stump basically needs to wreck out at this point for anybody to try and catch up. 2 to go this time by, and a lucky gift for Paul Stump, I'd say, to get this win, but he still was in contention the entire night. This is not an undeserved win if Paul Stump is able to hold on for 2.5 more laps.
Now, he was in the conversation for race 1 inside the podium positions. Now, with the 2 to go mark coming up, just looking to try and keep the tires on it. Keep it on the circuit with a massive bumper. Nobody is around him, not even close currently. Just having to make sure no slides. And remember, that car's had a couple slides today, Josh.
2 to go this time by. 6 seconds for Mike McCormick, but even though it doesn't look like he might grab the win, what a day for Mike McCormick. He qualified top 5 here in race number 2, a striking difference from race 1 for him, and he's going to end up, it looks like, on the podium again if he can hold on for 2 more laps. A fantastic run for the 99.
Just the 4th time possibly for Mike McCormick to finish 2nd in his career in this series. Things stay the way they're going for Paul Stump. Still a lap and a half to go for the 54 machine. Still has been able to maintain the distance in the 117s. Meanwhile, Cohen, Morgan, and Greenwood, they are gaining on McCormick, but they need to gain about another 2nd and a 3rd to be able to have a shot to take away 2nd.
How about Steve Greenwood? He's caught up to John Morgan as well. He might have an opportunity to grab that 4th spot with 4 tenths separating the two. Now 3.5 tenths separating Morgan and Cohen. These 3 are now in a heated battle for that 3rd spot. But out in front, all Paul Stump is its white flag this time.
Final time around for race 2 and for round 1 of the season for Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. 60-plus racing adventures for Paul Stump. It's been an adventurous day. Top 3 in the first run, 2nd time. Contact, where he's able to survive to hold on up front. But the battle is absolutely now on, possibly for 2nd, if not 3rd. Morgan within range, Greenwood with the fastest lap in this group. McCormick is within the drafting range to feed to Cohen's car. Keep in mind as well. So 4 cars could battle it up for the rest of the podium.
Stump in a world of his own, but McCormick has Bob Cohen about a 2nd back. Cohen has Morgan about 3.5 tenths back, and unfortunately Steve Greenwood up through the S's, losing a bit of time as they go to the back straight away for the final time. Can anybody use the slipstream to make any final moves? Bob Cohen might see the edge of the podium end up falling to the wayside as here comes John Morgan. But out in front, it's all Paul Stump as he goes through the final chicane looking for the checkered flag.
Paul Stump waited patiently in race 1. now gets to rev his motors in victory lane after race 2. Paul Stump finishes round 1 with a W in 60+ Racing Adventures.
And out of the final chicane, no changes for second. It's McCormick, Cohen, Morgan, and Greenwood, the top 5.
Going 4th career top 3. McCormick, 4th career 2nd place. Morgan keeps up the top 5 consistency in his series history. Greenwood recovers from bad run in race 1 to finish in 5th. Take a look at some of the R battles. Amongst them, see the purple car. Gene Moore, he was lapped in race 1. He was the major lap car factor in race 1. Recovers to finish in 9th.
And we mentioned earlier, JP, how it's the best of the 2 finishes in either of these races. So that's going to go well for Gene Moore to start this brand new season with a 9th place point value up on the board.
What a charge for some drivers. In turn, 15 lead lap competitors. Russ Addy still finishes 16th, keep in mind, on the track despite the fast repair. But the last of those drivers crossing the stripe now. Jerry Curl close things out here in this one. Check that, 10 to 14. Still 15, rather. Still, regardless, race results, Paul Stump picks up the victory by a whopping 7 seconds nearly over McCormick. Then Cohen, Morgan, Greenwood, your top 5. Olsen, Garris, Clark, Moore, and Beasley, the top 10. A majority of those drivers in the back half of the top 10 finished towards the sub-top 20 mark in race 1. David Bradley finishes in 11th, then it's Columba in 12th, then it's Setzer, recovering from a crash on lap 1 race 1 to a 13th in race 2. Curran Hallstrom, the top 15. Then it's Russ Addy in 16th. Amongst the first lap down cars, Shoemake, Poole, Hay, and Dion, the top 20. Then Bruning, Fitterer, Bailey, Hills, Love, Anderson, and Bystrom, the top 27. Bystrom did park his car from the pole to last in race 2. What an adventurous day for 60+ Racing Adventures. Josh, opinions after race 2?
We saw a lot of the same stuff, but I think it's just the smallest mistake from Stump that led to the contact with Addy, that led to taking out Fitterer as well. It was a heated battle for most of the race, but then I really want to mention that even though it was a mistake from Paul Stump that took out his 2 main competitors, Stump was still in the lead battle for the entire night. It was a deserved win for the number 54 tonight.
Exactly. One of the drivers is standing by after that one. It's a podium for Bob Cohen. Bob, welcome to Podium Land for 2022. Congrats. Bob, do you have a copy? I'll try one more time. Bob, do you have a copy? It's the 4th career top 3 for Bob, keep in mind, entering this one, and you have to give credit to Bob. He kept it clean, 9th to 3rd. Josh.
And it doesn't look like we're going to, unfortunately, be able to reach Bob Cohen tonight, but mentioned it was a great run for him, finishing on the edge of the podium. Started 9th as well. A lot of time made up, as well as it looks like we'll be able to grab maybe 2nd place Mike McGormick. JP, if you want to try and get him on the ring.
Let's try this. Mike, do you have a copy? Mike McCormick, do you have a copy? We heard a rustle. Do you hear us? I take that as a yes. It is your 4th career top 2 in the run, Mike. How does it feel? I take that now as a no. And with that, well, remember the next time out towards this series, midway point of the season, we return Josh.
And we'll be coming back with a very, very interesting track as well at Laguna Seca. And we'll grab another look at that full schedule with Barcelona, New Hampshire, Long Beach, and Donington Park in between. And then with Gateway Motorsport, Phillip Island, Road America, and Phoenix leading up to the finale at the Nordschleife as well. A very, very interesting calendar to say the least. And in 2 interesting broadcasts coming up as well. July 19th and September 2nd at Laguna Seca and the Nordschleife.
It's going to be intriguing to see how things play out in July, but for now, it's time to say goodbye. We'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's action for 60 Plus Racing Adventures. For my co-announcer and producer Joshua Lee, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Congratulations to today's race winners for coming away successful in this one. In the first race, it goes the direction of one pool, and it's one stump who picks up the victory in race 2. Good night.